Welcome back to episode 6 of Advancement Podcast. I'm your host again, Taylor Schote. I'm excited to still be on this journey.
Wow,
Still being on the journey with President of Advancement Coaching and Consulting, Tim Weir. Again, guys, our prayer today is that the insights and information and the dialogue between Tim and I would help you grow. And we believe that you are meant to advance, and that in doing so, you would advance the kingdom of God.
I'm excited about some of the things that we're going to talk about today. I'm also thrilled to be able to say that today's show is sponsored by Realtor Chad McAnich. He's a great realtor in the Waco, Temple, Central Texas area. So if you're looking to buy a house, sell a house, this is a great man that believes in our vision and believes in the mission to help advance pastors and churches. And so we say thank you to Chad for his sponsorship of today's podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. Well, Tim, I don't know about you. I'm stuffed with turkey and ready to advance.
You ready to move? Yeah. This is really kind of the third piece in that from our dialogue months ago now, where we were laying out some of what we wanted to do, and you really put the idea that we needed to look at personal leadership.
Yeah.
And that how we lead ourselves matters.
That's right.
And as we were talking through the topic came up of how healthy evaluation matters. Now we can take this a long ways, and I would love to, and eventually we need to talk about creating a culture of evaluation and reflection in your church and in your organization. But if you're not comfortable as a leader doing self-evaluation, you sure don't want people evaluating you internally because it
can get brutal.
Yeah.
And personal and emotional.
Have you been there?
Just a little bit.
Me too. I guess I'm often told by my wife that I'm an open book. So since everybody already knows, I guess it's okay. But and other people say I have no feelings, or I have one or two and they're buried real deep. So, but I was not always good at evaluating. The truth is, it's very similar to what we talked about learning. There's a piece of humility that goes with being willing to do self-evaluation or have other people help you evaluate yourself.
Yeah, that's good.
It's amazing. If you really start looking at life and being a good leader, humility is a thread that really runs through it all.
Yeah, it's in the foundation, of what leadership, quality leadership is. Yeah.
I guess when I start thinking about evaluation, I always ask myself, one of the questions I ask myself is what is healthy evaluation? Because, here, what's the big fear when you start talking about evaluation is when we do organizational evaluations or when we do evaluations, people always want to go to the dark side.
The dreaded dark side.
They always want to. It's always let's start with the negatives. They always want to go to the negatives too fast.
Right.
That's what you find.
It absolutely. I think in leaders you often find the quality of being able to be critical, and sometimes that being able to be critical, it really is kind of wrapped in cynicism, and to be cynical in a sense, and so it's. What I'm trying to say here is that it's leaders, it's easy for us to know what's not working, or it's easy for us to identify what didn't go right, what's not right in organization, but even in our own life. We can point out what's wrong sometimes quicker than we can point out what's right.
Well, but the trick in this is just healthy evaluation should reveal what's going right as well as what's going wrong.
That's good.
Because sometimes what's going wrong, it's not necessarily it's not me doing something here. Sometimes if I do what I'm doing right, if I do it more, it could fix what I'm doing wrong.
Wow, yeah.
And if I focus too much on what's wrong, sometimes I will make a misstep on what's going right. So a healthy evaluation says, okay, what are the good things? Yeah. Here we are at a point, in our organization in advancement, when we launched the podcast, we said the first thing, let's kind of think through, let's plan and strategize for our first 6, and we're going to evaluate as we go. And we're always asking the question. We've met with Marco in production, saying, okay, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? We talked about scratching our noses and learning how to, what are things we're doing well as in our interaction, in our content. And yet, where's the area for improvement? Yeah. So healthy evaluation doesn't look at either or, but it's always looking at both sides, and it should reveal both.
That's good.
And but I think most leaders are scared of evaluation. Most people are scared of evaluation because they're always expecting the bad news, and not the good news. So I think if you're going to say that's the number one thing is your healthy evaluation, and you can't focus only on the negative, because one negative, I'll go to guys, there's 12, 13, we can give this list. All these things are going well. And then you hit one thing and they just feel like the sky is falling.
Yeah.
Okay, you act like you were going to say something, then you pause.
No, well, I was thinking back to grad school here recently. We were studying on when you're having to evaluate somebody else, and I know we're talking about personal evaluation, but I think this applies to ourselves. It's natural for us when we identify an area that needs improvement to go in, and if you're like this type of leader who's just let's get it done, to go in and just deal with that one. And sometimes you can leave the person you're evaluating defeated, that you're trying to improve. And I'm just sitting here kind of wondering if that applies in our own life. That if we only are identifying the bad in our life, are we actually deflating and defeating ourselves?
Wow!
Do we walk away less motivated to move forward because it's the enemy wants to use the lie of, well, if you're doing this wrong, what else are you doing wrong? Or you'll never get it right.
That's good. I had to write that down. Negative evaluation only deflates.
Yeah.
And it's true. Well, one of the things, I think today we talked about we wanted things to be practical. Today's really going throughout, the practicality is going to be woven throughout, because I think what you're saying is true, because part of healthy evaluation, even when you're dealing with employees or people that you lead, as well as yourself, when you evaluate, can be just as important. Timing matters.
Yes. Yeah.
Timing matters. If I'm evaluating how we did in our first 6 podcasts, well, let's wait till June to go back and talk about the first 6.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. We're going to have done so many more by then, and there'll be no lessons. So timing matters. So the fact that we took time to evaluate after podcast 1, we did it again with Marco after podcast 3, and then after the episode 5, we talked some more about these things, because when you evaluate matters.
Yeah, that's good.
So if I go through a season of, if I run a marathon, if I go through a season of extremely of some event, doing something, whatever, our move, how did the move go? Our kids are off college, we're whatever. When I evaluate matters. So I think also when is a matter of regular evaluation. That we should put ourselves here again. We're back at tension. This cycles that we should, because evaluation is a moment of tension.
Yeah.
I think regular evaluation matters too. Maybe a better word is consistent.
Yeah, I think consistent. Just the act of going back and on a regular basis, and what I'm hearing you say is, what am I evaluating? Not just consistently, but evaluating it against. Going back and going, this is where I was. This is where maybe I'd hoped to be. And is there, if you don't do it consistently enough, that gap between where you are, where you want to be, can, if you're not adjusting from your evaluation, can grow wider and wider, which is more deflating when you're not meeting that goal.
And if you do it, and if your consistency, if you're too much, do it too often, then you don't give yourself a chance to to see the movement.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I have a couple of friends that are trainers, that are coaches, that are physical health coaches, and they tell their guys weigh in once a week.
Once a week. Yep.
And tell me what it is. Now, most of these people that they're on, those guys are getting on the scale every day.
Yep.
The coach is saying all you need to do is once a week.
Yeah.
So consistent at the right intervals.
Yeah. You're not, we talked earlier in the podcast about Morgan and I joining a gym.
Yeah.
This was months ago. We've joined a gym and trying to figure out our rhythm still.
Yes.
I just admit I'm not a gym rat. I'm not looking to become Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Well, that's a good thing.
I'm not on my way. My evaluations, but I remember them saying, "Don't get on the scale every day."
You'll be back
because the health coach that I met with at the beginning said you are going to naturally fluctuate.
Uh-huh.
There's going to be natural shifts in your weight, and thinking about that in the context of what we're talking about, evaluating personal growth, those things, you're not always going to get it right all the time.
No, you're not. So keys, you need to do healthy evaluation, positive and negative. You need to do consistent, steady, regular, at the right interval evaluation. And then I think also we're talking about leaders. What we evaluate matters.
Yes.
What we evaluate matters. As we were talking about this, obviously you're talking about you're in a gym, healthy. Our physical body needs to be one of the things. Our physical health is something we need to evaluate.
Yeah.
Most health care plans will even provide you with one annual physical.
Yeah.
So that's an important thing. We should be evaluating ourselves physically.
Yeah, and that even we a couple episodes back we talked about a rest, Sabbath and rest. And there's so much spiritual attachment to a Sabbath and rest, but in a physical way too. And if God has really called us to do what we're doing, whether that's in the business world or in the church ministry, wherever in between those two, we have to take care of our bodies physically.
Well, so what we just did is we said what it to evaluate. So one of the things we can evaluate, we need to evaluate our health in general, blood pressure, those things. But we can also look back at our calendar.
That's good.
And we can say, we can evaluate, did we honor our Sabbath? Did we put enough margin and rest in our life to stay healthy?
That's good.
Did we put enough margin and rest in to keep our relationships healthy?
Wow.
So that's two things to evaluate. Some other things we should evaluate. If we're believers, we're Christian leaders, we're talking to pastors and church leaders, we should evaluate our personal spirituality.
Yes.
Now, where calendar's pretty is not going to be highly subjective, and if the doctor's telling you something that's not highly subjective, people will say, "Well, how do you evaluate your spirituality?" I'm closer to Jesus today than I was on January 21st. Okay, so you have to put markers in.
Right. So what's some of those markers?
Well, how consistently did I do personal devotions?
Yeah.
That's for me, I'm a journaler. It's one of the reasons I believe in journaling, because it keeps me accountable.
Yeah.
And I can go back through my journal and I can see what days I didn't. How many days did I do 365? Well, no, I didn't do 365. I overslept one day, So there's probably about 5 days in 2018 that I didn't get up and I didn't do my personal devotion in the morning. But I can look for consistency in that. Did I do that? Now, for me, I have a habit at the end of every year. We're coming into the end of the year that I take December, and I always ask the Lord, because I have a terrible fear, and I know for people out there, don't be afraid, but I have a fear of getting into a rut where my spirituality becomes humdrum. So I always take time and I evaluate and ask the Lord, what should I do differently in my spirituality, my personal spirituality next year?
Yeah.
Over the years doing that, one year I read through the scripture by genre. I had a specific reading plan. One year I called it the year of fasting, and I fasted a lot. Let's say I fasted almost a third of the year.
Wow.
But that was what this year I I felt very compelled to go through the Psalms.
Mm.
And one year I felt like the Lord said I was supposed to just soak in the words of Jesus. So I spent the entire year reading nothing but the Gospels over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that year.
Oh.
I remember that in our conversations. I love that you're not just saying to evaluate whether or not you did it or did it well, but to evaluate going forward even, looking at this going, not just being able to check off the box, but was this, I think what you're saying is more than even was this effective, is this, do I continue this?
Right.
Is this this has been good for me. I've succeeded in this, but what can I do moving forward in the same arena, but to make it another successful year or another effective year for me?
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so in the gym, you don't do the same exercise every day. Matter of fact, if you only do the same thing all the time, then then the muscle groups that don't get exercise, they actually will be overpowered, and you'll do damage to the weaker muscles. So these full body rotating, changing workouts is healthy.
Yeah.
Because it exercises different parts. It does something different for you. So sometimes maybe that's the question. You evaluate what might be the things you should shift, not change, not say I'm going to stop doing or I'm going to start doing, but I should shift for the sake of strengthening another portion.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
So we evaluate. We're gonna evaluate our physical health. We can evaluate our rest. We can evaluate our personal spirituality. We can evaluate our relationships.
Yeah.
To sit with my wife and say, okay, how did we do this year?
That's a challenging question.
How did we do this year? Did we do what we said we were going to do?
Yeah.
Did I treat you the way you deserve to be treated?
Yeah. In marriage, I heard a pastor share this conviction of his that he feels like that one of his roles as the husband is to ensure that his bride is the bride that Christ is ready to meet.
Mm.
That one of his roles is to help ensure that his wife is the best bride ready for Christ. And there's so much to that, and that's not the topic today.
Yeah.
But just coming back and asking that question about our marriage or our relationship with a significant other is have we helped strengthen our relationship together, but have we helped them? Have I been the spouse that has built my spouse up? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another area we should evaluate is our finances.
Yeah.
You're coming toward the end of the year. This is if we're believers, if we're Christian leaders, did I tithe? Was I I would even say more than just was I obedient to the letter of the law, tithe. Maybe the question is, can I see that I operated not only was I a good steward, but was the spirit of generosity? Did I operate in the generosity of the Father this year?
Yeah. Tim, I had an opportunity not too long ago to sit with Scott Wilson, pastor of the Oaks, and many topics were discussed that day. I was just kind of, it wasn't many. In fact, there was only 3 of us in the room, and I was just what I would have called the spectator in the room listening.
Right.
And Pastor Scott made this comment that tithing oftentimes is considered the ceiling of our giving.
Oh, wow!
But really, for the Christian believer, for the faith-filled believer, it's the floor.
Yes,
it's the floor. And when he said that, and it kind of just shifted that thinking in my mind of, Morgan and I, we tithe. That was something we were always committed to doing, but really going, okay, God, we don't want our tithe to be our ceiling. We want it to be the floor. The foundation, let's not call it the floor, the foundation of what we do with generosity.
Yeah. I mean, I think generosity, that's become a pretty big word for me over the last really almost a year now, but we don't have time to go into that today. But I think the idea of generosity, so that's something I can evaluate. So, if I just evaluated those areas of my life now, and at this time, it might be a good time to evaluate my leadership. Now, evaluating my leadership is going to be kind of like evaluating how did I do as a husband. This means may have to sit with I'm going to have somebody help me.
Yeah.
But if I evaluated those 6 areas annually, and if I took December of every year and did that evaluation so that I could make a plan going in to January, how much better this creates that cycle of growth.
Yeah.
It creates that measurable. I'm able to say, okay, this is what I was doing. This is where I'm at. Now in January, this is where I'm this is what I'm going to do because this is where I'm headed.
Yeah, that's good.
So creating that cycle of evaluation is a powerful tool. And I think that, so then you ask, well, how do you do evaluation? Well, obviously some of it is sitting and I got to ask my wife. I've got to look at my finances.
Yeah.
Here's when you do this, it's about scheduling it. It's about being intentional. Put it in the calendar. When am I going to do this?
Yeah. And I would suggest to give yourself some time.
Yeah.
It's not something that just comes easy or quickly. Really give yourself some time to wrestle with it.
That's a really good thing. Give yourself time. So once again, that's something you need to put in your calendar.
Yeah.
You just need to plan it. And I'm going to tell you what I do, because though I want to be introspective, not all of us are highly introspective. The more extroverted you are, the less introspective you usually are. I don't do this alone, any of this. I have found that I'm best. I've got some friends. I've got people in my life. I have a coach. I personally have a coach. I don't just do coaching, but I have a coach because I believe in it. And I sit and I say, okay, these are the areas. Ask me the questions. Yeah. Ask me the hard questions. Make me give you the answers.
Yeah. I love that you just said, ask me the hard questions. Because, if we were to go back to our very first podcast on tension, there can be tension there that if I answer this hard question with truth, am I going to like what I hear? Even for myself. And that fear, remember we talked about tension. There's one of the reasons is we're afraid of the unknown or just the fear of that. But that evaluation piece is so key to our growth. So to not be afraid to answer the hard questions. And so the word, as you said, that kind of kept coming through my mind of give yourself permission.
Yeah.
Give yourself permission to answer honestly and that to not beat yourself up, right? So not to steal thunder here, but I think doing it with someone else helps you realize that you're maybe not as good as you think you are, but you're probably never as bad as you thought you were as well.
Well, and here again, we just automatically, and it's crazy because we actually automatically just turned it toward, well, there's going to be more negative things. But the other piece in this is celebrate the wins.
Yeah, that's good.
Celebrate the win. Every one of them, no matter how big, how small, celebrate the win. If you've evaluated and there's a win, I don't know, but I love sports. I'm a baseball fan. I like to watch football. And when my team wins, I like to give a whoop. I like to throw my hand in the air. Celebrate the win.
Yeah.
So, if I'm going to evaluate, I should be able to celebrate the win, not just the loss.
Yeah. Tim, let me ask you real quick. What's some of the wins that you have celebrated previously? Because I think naturally thinking in the negative, it's hard to think what win could I think about?
Well, I'll tell you what. Okay, I hate saying this, Taylor, but I celebrate the fact that the year of fasting for me, I did my first ever 40-day fast.
Okay.
That's a win. That was a huge win. It was a huge win. That year, I fasted 118 days.
Wow.
That I did. I celebrated that. I'm going to celebrate in a few. At the end of this year, that I will have read through the Psalms and journaled through the Psalms twice.
Wow.
This year.
That's so cool.
I when I evaluate some of the things with in our relationships, last year I was able to celebrate that my kids were off at college, both of them, and doing well.
Yeah.
That they were, I was able to celebrate that Rachel and I, we were doing good in the empty nest. Because that's an unknown. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
We moved in that season, and our move was successful. It wasn't too stressful. We didn't break any furniture. So there were things that we did so I could celebrate those things. I look back at my leadership. I created some new teams. Now, can I tell you there were a couple of guys that I was too hard on, and that some relationships that I had to spend 2018 restoring relationship because I couldn't celebrate completely success. But as I began to look, there were plenty of wins to celebrate.
That's cool. I loved hearing you share some of those because it made me think some of the ones that you mentioned, I may never have even considered a win, but shining a different perspective on it. I mean, the reality is that we made it this far.
Yeah.
That's a win. Yeah, right now, that's a
we got that for us, and for advancement this year is launching a podcast that we've been talking about since March, and getting to this point at the end in a couple. We're going to celebrate. This is a win.
Yeah.
So I think the question for everybody today really is: what area of your life do you need to evaluate, and when do you need to do it so that you can be ready for 2019?
Yeah, that's a great question, Tim. Man, guys, thanks for listening again. I think just the big takeaway today as we wrap up this podcast is this episode here is that, man, there's things in our life, both the negative in the sense that we need to think about doing differently or changing up a little bit, but also the positive, that there's great things out there that you've accomplished that you need to celebrate. Hey, thanks again to our sponsor down there in Waco, Selling Houses.
Yeah, thank you, Chad. Thank you, Chad McAnich. And can I just, one more thing? I know we're really about out of time, but this Friday is 11:30.
That's right.
So we've been talking about the 11:30 challenge, and this is the week. This is the Friday where we said do something intentional for the harvest. Do something. We're looking forward. So go on our Facebook page. Go on the website. Make comments. Tell us your story. Tell us what you did. Tell us what wins you had on 11:30, because that's one I'm going to celebrate too.
Yeah, that's cool. We're celebrating. Man, guys, today's notes are located on the website for Advancement, www.advancement.cc. If you'd like to connect with an advancement coach to help you with some 2019 year-end evaluation goals, or even for this year, if you wanted to set up for the end of this year, 2018, you can email info@advancement.cc. And just put in the subject line personal evaluation. And we look forward to hearing from you. If you're listening today on iTunes, please rate the podcast, share it with your friends, other pastors, all of our social media platform for Advancement. Love for you to post questions and comments. Again, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time here at the Advancement Podcast. This is Taylor Show on behalf of Tim Ware and the Advancement team. Just remember, you are meant to advance.